So this is my review of my personal experience of 2016, a year which has been pretty appalling in most people's lives and in the public life of the West anyway. And I have this Chrome extension called Tumblr Collage, which basically just throws up the pictures that you post to your Tumblr page in a kind of mosaic or collage. And so I'm just going to scroll through this and talk about pictures and bring things up. The year begins in Seoul, Korea, and here I am. You can see my typical haunts, which are covered market arcades. Seoul's markets are fantastic. I have a distinct memory of looking back on this first week of 2016 as a kind of prelapsarian bliss after David Bowie died, because I thought, God, this is the last time I'll ever be truly happy, because I was living in a world with my hero, David Bowie. There was even the sense of communicating with him, because I could, make tribute concerts to him while he was alive, and his people would be filming them for him to watch, or it could be mentioned on his website or whatever. There was this weird sense of being part of the same kind of spirit mind and inhabiting the same universe as my hero. And then, so the first 10 days of the year, he was still alive, and then he died on January the 10th, and I learned about this on the ferry crossing. Actually, that piece doesn't come up on this app, because it was a text entry, and this just looks at the image entries. But so there was this sudden black cloud over the year, really, because of the death of this person who's been very important to me. And I felt a little strange about, even doing clothes-related things. I mean, I'm very, as this picture of some tucked-in sort of Korean knickerbockers shows, I'm very interested in dress and in fashion. And the last Japanese entry I did in 2015 was about this old lady's eccentric old lady's bright color style. And life, in a trivial, happiness is often trivial, and in the trivial sense, life was. And to a certain extent, this is resumed, because in a way, my grief has subsided enough for me to find life happy again. I'm not going to get very far through the year if I don't move a bit quicker, but I have this weird thing that I think to myself, dead David Bowie is saying, you should just be happy to be alive. Whatever awful shit is going on in the world and in your life, it is a fantastic privilege just to be alive. And I feel that very strongly after his death. He loved life very much. That was his religion, in a sense, was life itself and living it with intensity and joy. And that is the very least we owe his memory, I think. So, we have the happy 10 days, and then the bomb of this news of his death. Korea... I'm actually going to end the year in Korea again, in Seoul again. So this has become a regular thing for me to pop over there, and I find it. I really didn't want to go back to Europe unnecessarily this Christmas and New Year. I hate Christmas and New Year anyway. I hate sort of holiday periods, especially in places like Germany, where everything really closes down, and then people have this really aggressive and noisy Silvesternacht, it's called, the New Year celebration in Germany. It's extremely, feels like Third World War or something. It's sort of dangerous and aggressive and unpleasant. People throwing fireworks into subway trains and things. So I'm very happy to stay in Asia, where mostly Christmas is just the excuse to play some really bad music, mentioning Israel a lot, which always strikes me as kind of ridiculous. What does Israel mean in Japan? But and then New Year is fairly low-key as well. Things do close. The museums and things are going to be closed. I'll be frustrated for a few days in Seoul in early January, because there won't be the usual exhibitions to see and stuff. But they open fairly swiftly here. So I'm trying to stay Asian, partly because of the absolute political chaos of Europe and Brexit. I really don't want to go anywhere near Britain if I can help it for quite some time. Here's a picture of my friend Andeth in Seoul. Yeah, this is going to be a very long video if I don't go a bit faster. The colours of Seoul compared with the colours of Japan I really appreciate. They're not afraid of bright colours and kind of vulgarity. I mean, the Koreans can be brash and vulgar, just like their cuisine is very brash and vulgar. Okay, now we've scrolled up to some pictures of books, and this is a big theme of my year, is just, in a sense, going back under my stone, and my particular stone is a literary, bourgeois, Europhile culture, very oriented to books of the 20th century. So in a sense, it's the beginning of my old age, which is kind of, as I say in the song, Tick of the Clock, it's this, I am told, is how you get old. This need to be out of touch. I don't want to be in harmony with things that I hate so much. So, but of course, you can't just be out of touch. You have to be in touch with something. And what I'm in touch with is a certain literary idea of the 20th century literary avant-garde. So here we have the Pirandello, Paul Klee, Cesare Pavese, Franz Kafka, Strindberg, well, 19th century in Strindberg's case. The Fontana Dictionary of Modern Thought. But also addressing, I mean, I've just retreated in some sense to my particular pleasures. I mean, I'm still politically engaged and I'm still politically trying to think about what's happening. I just nominated my personal word of the year on Facebook, which is humili-boldened. I feel that people have been, the new populism, the new fascism light is a combination of people having been emboldened by social media echo chambers and tabloids, people seeming to agree with them, but this simultaneous material sense of doing very badly and rising inequality. So humili-boldening is actually quite similar to what Germany went through post the 1919 Treaty of Versailles. And I think this is what the global, well, especially the Western proletariat is now feeling. They're humiliated partly by the rise of Asia, actually. So, where I've relocated to is taking over their role as the advantaged leaders of the world. And there's a dull sense of that, but there isn't any commitment. Of course, as a Marxist thinker, I would say that there has to be a commitment to actual redistribution. So what's happening now is that the right is going through the same sterile process as the left went through with political correctness. In a sense, the right has discovered belatedly all the things that the left has been teaching for the last 2 or 3 decades, which is things like culture, identity politics, postmodern relativism, all these things. And now the right's saying, well, we can play at those games too, and we can say we're a minority group and we're, able to have a radical politics of identity. But it's all a storm in a teacup because you cannot have symbolic reparation for material deficit. You must have actual redistribution of material goods and money for there to be any quantitative easing of people's life circumstances. So here I am posing as usual in my outlandish Asian clothes, lying on the floor of my apartment. Some David Bowie songs envisioned as paperback books. The beginnings of my publishing my diaries. Okay, so this is me copying Gallimard folio paperbacks, pastiching that for my university diaries of the early 80s, which I suppose that was the first project I embarked on after Bowie died, and I thought, well, I've had so much of my personality invested in David Bowie, and who am I if I'm not David Bowie? And so I went back to those diaries and transcribed them rather painstakingly for free digital distribution. You can get them on iMomus.com. Scroll down on the left-hand side. And it was really a way to self-therapy, really, to say, who am I, what matters to me, what are my ultimate values, and where do I come from? And so more books, lots of books. In many cases, this is also, my interest in books is also a reaction to things becoming too digital, and simultaneously the digital becoming boring. I've found that actually books are simply better on a line-to-line. But you're doing a lot of reading online, but the writing is kind of clunky and poorly expressed. And of course, the trade-off is that it seems fresh because it's about now, but actually there's very little which is truly changed or truly different about now than any other historical period. And you're actually repaid much more handsomely by type on paper pages, and also it smells better. Here I am with my ueda at some sort of artistic event in Hanazono-sho in South Osaka. And here I am celebrating the Chateau and Windus paperbacks, which Mark Bolan also collected, as I recall. André Gide, he's been quite an important writer for me this year. Been reading The Fruits of the Earth, and also his travel book about the return from Chad. I've been making a conscious effort to read books in French and in German. Oh, here I am looking back 10 years to 15 years, I guess, to my life in New York. Very interested in my changes, sartorial changes. And for instance, I'm wearing denim in one of these pictures, which is pretty shocking. Some denim. And I still had my eye in fairly good condition at that point, although it was blind. My New York apartment. I haven't been to New York since 2009. It's been really an occlusion in my personal life of America, totally. And of course, I published my Un-America novel a couple of years ago. I mean, obviously, what has happened in the U.S. with Trump is appalling, but it's almost like I had already cancelled America out of my worldview, or tried to. But of course, it's very present even when cancelled out. So now, I guess we're in about February here. David Bowie, pictures of David Bowie for a certain period after his death oppressed me. I mean, every YouTube video, every time I watched a David Bowie video on YouTube, I knew I was going to get more recommendations, and that meant that little pictures of David Bowie would pop up on the right-hand side of my YouTube feed, and that was painful. That was actually, I didn't want to see those, and I had to sort of click to remove some of those things and try not to watch. And of course, all the Tumblr feeds and things, just endless pictures of Bowie after he died, and yeah, it has really been a bereavement. I've been very unable to. I used to comment pretty much on a daily basis on the Bowie Songs blog, and I haven't been able to in 2016. He's posted. He's also been sensing that bereavement very strongly, and found it very difficult to get back into his critiques of the songs, which he's been doing. I've preferred to escape into this kind of retro fantasy of European 20th century culture, and of course also the visual. I mean, visual art continues to be super important to me, and yeah, just moving around in Osaka, photographing things, cycling, changing seasons. I was writing. Yeah, here's one of my Japan Times columns. I was writing these columns. And then quit voluntarily because I sort of ran out after about 6 or 8 columns, ran out of things to write about cheap food because I have a pretty terrible relationship with food. I actually resent having to eat at all. I would rather have no material. I would rather have freedom and not have to eat than have the pleasure of eating and have to work to pay for the food. Here I am back in Seoul again. What am I doing back in Seoul so quickly? Oh, that's weird. Did I? Oh, I guess because my flight was via Seoul back to Europe. So this is me now heading back after a few days in Seoul, at which I look at Zaha Hadid's design center. And of course, Zaha Hadid, one of the many high-profile creative people who died in 2016. She died very suddenly and unexpectedly of a heart attack. I wasn't an unmixed admirer of Zaha Hadid. I think I accused her at one point of having been a symptom of sharkitecture, which was aggressive, spiky, pointy architecture, which I didn't like. But I did like her Seoul Design Center. Here's a Jim Lambie tape installation on the floor of the ICA. A sartorial academic journal called Vestoj, which I enjoyed a lot. A mural of David Bowie, which I snapped after having performed David Bowie songs in Manchester. Oh wait, was that my own? Maybe that was my own Momus concert. Yeah, that was This is the poster. His first Manchester show since his first Manchester show in 4 years. What's it say? At Gulliver's. So it's become one of the things I do now to impersonate David Bowie. I think I would worry if that were outnumbering Momus concerts. I don't want to be a tribute act, even to someone particularly to someone as dauntingly great as David Bowie. That's my mother in Edinburgh. I'm visiting Edinburgh. Michael Peterson, who is part of Neu Riki, the concerts organisation. So I'm actually doing the only concert I have scheduled at the moment for 2017 is in the first week of June in Hull. I'm doing a Bowie concert again, organised by Michael Peterson. Here I am in Hamburg. I'm looking at the Geniale Dilettanten show, which was a very good show, actually organised, curated by the mother of a friend, Pauli, about the Neue Deutsche Welle bands, especially Hamburg-related, but yeah, the new German wave of the early 80s, Pauli Schaumburg and people. Lots of Holger Hiller pictures. It was such a relief after doing my family visits in Britain, to get back to Germany, which I consider my home base in Europe. When in Europe, Germany is where I feel most at home, for sure. Especially Berlin. Not so much Munich. I spent quite a lot of time in Schwabing, actually just a few doors down from the site of the 11 Executioners Cabaret and the great famous kind of bohemian radical scene of Munich 100 years ago, basically, which gave birth to Brecht and Wedekind and all these people. So that was good, and I felt kind of at home in Munich. But in comparison, I think Vienna and Berlin and Prague are much more conducive because they have more cosmopolitanism, more immigrants, more cheap things. The beauty of cheap things has been an ongoing theme of mine. There's my friend Jan, my storage, me outside my storage in Berlin, me outside the Volksbühne. Yeah, this is some gay people embracing in Berlin, me buying second-hand clothes and doing various fiction-related events. Ingo Neerman's experimental literary imprint, buying Soorkamp books in the bookshop next to David Bowie's old apartment, which is actually a fantastic second-hand bookshop, really great, probably Berlin's best, run by an old couple. Yeah, what are we up to? I guess we're up to March or April or something. I was sitting for my portrait with Jessine Hein, buying Arno Schmidt paperbacks and Brecht paperbacks and things at the Boxhagener Platz market. Yeah, Berlin, always nice to be in Berlin. This time, though, I was staying just off the Kurfürstendamm. Usually I'm in eastern kind of previously communist areas or Neukölln. This time in the west, and it was a different Berlin, although I tended to always just gravitate back to Neukölln or to the Schillerkiez or whatever. So yeah, these are pleasant memories actually, being in Germany. Düsseldorf, looking at art shows in Düsseldorf, buying Peter Handke. Did I buy that? Oh no, that's Peter Handke Publikums Beschimpfung, the insulting the audience, which features in one of my novels actually. Some people act that out. I think it's in Pop-Up. I'm at Düsseldorf Art Academy here. Of course, Joseph Beuys was a teacher there until he was sacked. Here I am now in Stuttgart, and with the artist Abel Auer, about whom I write a feature for Frieze.de, my only Frieze feature of 2016, the German edition of Frieze. Social Phobia. That's another Soorkamp. So now I'm in Zurich. That was actually kind of the beginning of my month on the European railways. I took a Eurail pass and went round. It's almost like a farewell tour, because as a British person, I may be having my rights of freedom of movement in Europe stripped away from me without my having ever given that permission. Severe limitation of my rights as a European citizen. I'm hoping that this scheme of opting back into EU citizenship will go ahead, but I have no faith at all in it, because if the British government has any say at all, it will not be allowed. A lot of scenes out of train windows here. I'm traveling around, looking at art shows in Barcelona and places like that. What could be nicer, going around Europe in the spring, early summer, two girls on the street in Barcelona. Actually, Asian. I'm always on the lookout for Asian people in Europe. And here's the ex-girlfriend of my Scottish friend Douglas Stewart, who I met by chance on the street in Lisbon with her child. I guess she's now married to a Portuguese guy. Lisbon is fantastic. I love Lisbon as well. I played a show there at a place called Caixa Económica Operaria. And several shows in Portugal actually. But Portugal, which is a strangely late-breaking Momus hit territory. These are the pavements of Vigo, a town in western Spain, which then got translated into the patterns of my compilation, the Pubic Intellectual compilation, the Momus compilation, which came out. Somebody with an umbrella hooked in his collar, which I'm told by Guillermo, who you see here, is a very characteristic Basque way to carry your umbrella, and with a little Basque cap. So I was in Bilbao here. I bought one of these Basque caps in Corostiaga, which is famous hat maker in Bilbao. Really enjoyed Bilbao. I was staying in this amazing designer apartment owned by the owner of a clothes shop, very interesting clothes shop in Bilbao, and being shown around by Guillermo, and also still buying these reclams. So I guess I'm back in the German culture zone here. It looks like. Oh yes, I'm back in Munich here. I seem to have returned. Oh yes, this is I went to Munich after Spain and spent, I think, 2 weeks in Munich. Went to the Glyptothek, which of course was my then current album. I don't think I'd been to the Glyptothek. I don't know why I chose Glyptothek as my my title for the last album, since it was really a Japanese themed album, but it did have some Greco-Roman themes in it, like songs about the Etruscans and things like that. So the Glyptothek is a Greco-Roman German museum. And I'm kind of interested in the Sehnsucht, the kind of longing which the northern European countries have for southern European countries, which has turned into a kind of mutual dependency and a much more complex and less positive relationship than it was in the neoclassical era of Winkelmann and all these archaeologists who came from Germany to excavate in Greece and places. But it's now more like the Germans, Schaubel telling the Greeks to pay their taxes and stuff. So I'm in Munich here, Munich. This is the trendy Schwabing baristas of coffee shops. And then I'm street viewing. I must be bored because I'm street viewing in Madagascar. Then these are some of the student areas, student residences in Munich around the what is that? Munich is all, especially in summer, it's so green, amazingly green parks and things. And now I'm in Vienna, and these very gay street lamps telling you to cross the road, holding hands with your gay partner, with super libertarian Vienna. And that was great after Munich, I have to say. I have said. Even the don't walk sign is a gay don't walk sign. And yeah, I'm at the Natural History Museum in Vienna. I actually got chased down the street by some Muslim butchers in the Brunnenstrasse market in Vienna for taking pictures through their window. I guess they're very jumpy and very paranoid about people suspecting them of being terrorists, or I don't know what. They were really, really suspicious and wanted to know why I was taking pictures. I just liked the typography of their sign. And they followed me halfway down the street asking, who are you, where are you from, why are you taking pictures of us? Now I'm in Venice, and I'm going to see the Venice Biennale, not only to see it, but to write about it. Actually, it's the Architecture Biennale in 2016. So I'm an art critic at the Architecture Biennale. I'm reviewing it for Art Agenda, eFlux, in New York. And my review basically says architecture biennials are at their best when they're kind of doing the same work as art biennials. So, fairly typical view of an art critic at an architecture biennial. Nice typography at the Baltic Pavilion. Baltic Pavilion always has good stuff, actually. Venice has become a place I go pretty much every year. If it's not the art biennial, it'll be the architecture biennial. And it's the ideal city for me because I truly hate cars. I think cars have ruined everything. Venice is, of course, a city without cars, an exemplary city of how life could be if we all walked. I don't really care that it's overpopulated because actually people are very conformist and they stay on a few very limited number of streets, and there are places in Venice where you find empty streets very easily. Okay, so now I've flown to London from Venice. I have an uneasy relationship with London because it's a city in Britain. I don't particularly like that. I took a country trip this time. I went on a jaunt to Jocelyn Brook country, looked at this water tower, which is Jocelyn Brook's one of his strongest symbols in his autobiographical writings. Here's a bit of a prediction or sort of an augur of the future Brexit, a black sign saying Brexit in the Slades Boulevard. Unfortunately, this was very much on the cards. Okay, this is the basement, some fluorescent lights in the basement of the hostel where I stay, which is in the middle of a beautifully brutalist sports centre, the Crystal Palace National Sports Centre. Okay, now I'm in Wales and I'm with a David Bowie death mask, or life mask actually, which has become in the interim a death mask. I'm doing Festival of the Voice and I'm singing the songs of David Bowie in my Dybbuk role, and meeting up with David Hewlett, who I collaborated with, had a residency with a couple of years back. This is my feature, finally has appeared in Freeze DE about the what's an interview with Abel Awa, and these cross of St George flags everywhere in England. This is really also a strong augur of what was going to happen in a month or two when they voted in June for Brexit. So I got out, and there's the new Tate Extension, which is one of the few things I really felt positive about in London this time. I thought this was, of course, it's Herzog and de Meuron. It's some Swiss architects, so it's hardly the British, and it's certainly post-Brexit, even less likely that there'll be great Swiss architects invited to make public buildings in Britain, or even private ones in the future. But so this is, and also a few shots of my favourite location in London, Whitechapel Road, the Bangladeshi market there. That's where I really feel at home in London. Again, Brexit has dealt a blow to that vision, the multicultural vision of London. And then I leave and I'm in Paris for a few days, taking photographs of French poetry, visiting my friends Gilles and Flo, and taking surreptitious pictures again of Africans in Paris, of the immigrants, of Arabs also, sartorially impressed by those people, and not impressed by the idiots with their St. George flags again, even in Paris, because there was a football match, I think the Euro Cup, wearing their stupid wigs and draped in their stupid flags. These people, the bane of my life, who have snatched my nation from under my feet. Well, it's not under my feet because Japan is under my feet, thank God. So in Paris I'm browsing bookstores, finding my own book, of course. It's a copy of Un-America on a French Fnac shelf. looking at Japanese poetry in Paris, and obviously nostalgic, keen to get home because this was almost 3 months I had in Europe in the middle of the year. So that's much longer than I usually spend. I'm usually just like 6 weeks in Europe and then back to Japan. Being interviewed by Daniela Franco for her film about Mujeres Enchentas, the pregnant women, I guess. It's a group she's making a documentary about, who may or may not exist. And then I'm in Prague, and that's the beginning of the end of my European jaunt because I head back to Japan. But nice to see Kari and Mika, my friends, and David Woodard, my friends in Prague. If I ever did head back to Europe, Prague would be definitely one possible destination because it's cheap and it's pleasant. It's got people I know. And okay, so I'm back in Japan and I'm already out in Amagasaki. Miyakoya here is my favorite uniform shop where I buy my carpenter's shoes and construction worker pants and things. Children's playgrounds. Oh, and this picture of me holding the guitar, that's quite symbolic because I'm actually starting to record an album which turns into Scobberlotchers, my post-Brexit album. Because the Brexit vote has happened on the actual day I fly back to Japan. And I'm shocked by the outcome. Despite all the auguries, I didn't really expect it to happen. And it's such a destructive moment for Britain. Whatever my differences are with Britain, I don't wish it ill, and it is essentially wishing itself ill with Brexit, and is doing a huge self-injury. Circus Maximus comes out on vinyl. So there's this sort of 30-year career retrospective kind of feel to this part of the year because my compilation also comes out, the Pubic Intellectual compilation, and gets quite widely reviewed. I was quite surprised. I guess I don't, when I put my own records out on American Patchwork, I don't employ a press officer. They're not actually sent to any journalists, and any reviews which do appear are fortuitous, and because the publications concerned want to review the record. But there was actually a press officer working on Pubic Intellectual, so here's the first blurry snapshot of it somebody posted on Twitter. So it was widely reviewed in newspapers and magazines and things, and actually very favorably reviewed. So, but I guess you don't really get 30-year career retrospectives very often. Well, once every 30 years. So the next one will be in 2046, won't it? Here is okay. The rest of the year settles down now to me just sort of enjoying Japan and trying not to be too distracted by the appalling things happening under my feet, far below, under my feet on the other side of the world in the West. So we're into my favourite part of the year now, which is sort of thundery August, and I guess I've finished recording because I've already got the sleeve here. I'm working on the sleeve for Scobberlotchers. Very quickly made and sort of political protests, but also just a snapshot of my feelings about the year, which is still pretty valid. My feelings haven't changed. I think Scobberlotchers does really define, although it was recorded pretty much immediately in the aftermath of Brexit. There are songs about Trump as well, and I was worried. I need not have been worried, but I was worried that they would be immediately dated when Trump lost the election in November, so I wanted to rush release Scobberlotchers before Trump's defeat, but of course he wasn't defeated, so unfortunately Scobberlotchers remains relevant. It's about Brexit and it's about Trump, and I doubt there'll be albums in 2017 as relevant. Who else has made? Somebody else. I just was reading. Somebody else has made a Brexit reaction album already, and sort of rush released it. Somebody quite interesting. I've forgotten who it was now. I think it was wasn't. It was somebody like Bjork. Yeah, I don't know. It'll come back to me. Okay, here I'm back in my Bowieologist role. I'm looking at Derek Boschier's sketches for the Lodger sleeve, which is a sleeve I particularly like. And I didn't realize how there are continuities between that and a Clash songbook he'd done. And so I was kind of delving into that. I was hoping to republish my novels. the rights of which have sort of reverted to me, maybe with Motto or somebody like that, but so far nothing has materialized in that. Would be good to have a one-volume edition of some of these novellas. Probably my favorite artist of the year, Yuichi Yokoyama. Big exhibition of his in Hiroshima. One of the highlights visually just of my year. I was just in raptures looking at those. It's a huge exhibition. There was hardly anybody there, and his colors, his paintings I really like especially, but also I like the fact that he's a visual artist who's dealing with narrative and dealing mostly non-verbally with narrative. I find very, very inspiring, and I would love to write a novel, for instance, which is as kind of formally playful as the Yuichi Yokoyama bande dessinée manga. So Iceland is the most recent book he's published, and I bought that. Retro tech, retro snaps of me, visits to Kobe, a letter to my grandmother, enjoying Osaka, hanging out in the sleazier parts of Osaka. These are word snapshots of my albums. Funny, my compilation album, biggest word is love, and on the Scobberlotchers, the biggest album is kill is quite big there. So it tells you what dark times we're living in. We've gone from love to kill. Just enjoying Osaka, basically. Enjoying poetry also. I discovered these amazing archives of poems. Tokyo Art Book Fair. So now, visiting all my Tokyo friends who are very conveniently gathered together at the Tokyo Art Book Fair. We're coming up to the present. Going to Okayama to review the Triennale, the Okayama Art Summit, which was sort of organized by Liam Gillick, who I like and respect a lot, but unfortunately I gave him a slightly negative review for Efflux, because I thought his latest artworks for that were a bit populist, and of course I understand, because really this Triennale was not connecting with the local people of Okayama, but I don't know if that is art's job really to connect. This is something I'm wondering about just now. Is the art world, which I get so much visual sustenance from, elitist and out of touch, blah, blah, blah. I really don't think it's its job to be in touch with the people, especially when the people are so wrong-headed as they are currently. Hopes for the European Union to embrace Scotland. This has been a time in which the political circumstances seem to be changing on an hourly basis, and yet they aren't really. The situation is just uniformly awful, but there is these glimmers of hope where we think, we'll be able to keep our European citizenship. Scotland will be able to join the European Union. All these things, and they're very like mirages that we're so desperate. We're clinging to these hopes. Here I am. I did a kind of Japanese version of my Eurail train pass and went around Japan in November. Went to a lot of islands. Went to a rabbit island and some art islands, of course, as well, in the Seto Inland Sea, and went all the way down to Kagoshima, which is the very end of Kyushu. My friends from Paris, Jill and Flo, too, coming to Kyushu actually later this month, but I won't be able to join them because I don't have the train pass anymore. So then I'm just back into buying second-hand books again, and a lot of French stuff, Spanish stuff, German stuff, which pretty much brings us up to the present. Here's my girlfriend, I call her, inverted commas, this 85-year-old lady who runs the second-hand bookstore, which I mostly patronize. I'm not going to tell you where it is because I want to keep those books there. Pretty much brings it up to the present, and it's funny because the year has been politically so awful, and yet for me personally, actually very pleasant in some ways. If I could cease to worry about the direction the world was going in.